versus Nelson.
And Noah Walker, definitely a very, very strong contender. So if he has the tools, I expect him to put Brad to the test. We'll see how this actually plays out. Play draw going to be very relevant here. If Noah is able to leverage a Gideon on the play, that's very important in this matchup. Of course, looks like Brad has taken the play here.
Brad on the play, turn 1, traverse the Ulfenvault. And for Noah Walker, it's going to be a Prairie Stream tapped. Now, there's not a lot of one-drop action in Noah's deck. A lot of times you see players start on Thraben Inspector and then turn 2 just crack the clue.
Yep, Thraben Inspector is frequently the turn 1 play. It's not super important, and given that the Inspector replaces itself, it scales relatively well. It's not very important that Noah starts on that card.
Brad plays a second land and just passes, so Noah will have the first creature in Selfless Spirit. Now, Brad couldn't grasp it, but he does have the Liliana to take care of Selfless Spirit. It is the danger of that card.
Yeah, not having the Inspector, no big deal. Having the Spirit and Brad having the Liliana, this is now trouble. You can see in these kind of spots, potentially Brad could just run away, build this Liliana up to an emblem, and win the game that way.
So I do need to make a correction here as Brad takes his Liliana up to 5. When we looked at our players to watch, we had Noah Walker listed as 8 and 2. The record here is correct. Both players are actually 9 and 1. They are playing both tied for first place right now.
Okay. And step there, Noah went for a Spell Queller to just get aggressive at this Liliana, but Brad had the murder. Brad is intending to leverage this Liliana to just win this game with his turn 3 play, if it's at all possible.
Liliana goes to 6, he passes. This just looks like another one of the routes like we saw yesterday. I mean, the Black-Green Delirium deck, Brad is going to kill everything Noah plays, make an emblem with Liliana,
it looks
and
like
call it a day.
Looks like the game plan for here is Avacyn for Noah, but I think that Brad has the Grasp of Darkness. This should pretty easily be going Brad's way.
Yeah, he'll traverse the Ulfenvault to make sure he hits his land drop. Checks to make sure Noah doesn't spell quell it. A check there.
When
Gets another land.
Liliana was first spoiled out of Eldritch Moon, a lot of players met it with some skepticism, a position that at this point in history is laughable. This card is excellent.
Card's great. End step Avacyn from Noah, Grasp of Darkness from Brad, takes care of the Angel. So now we go back to Noah. He doesn't have any creatures with haste. He's going to have to win through a Liliana emblem. And he knows it. You see a shake of the head there.
Modern players or pairings are now being posted.
Things have just not gone Noah's way right now. Selfless Spirit getting tagged by Liliana is just about the worst thing that can happen.
The draw lined up very poorly, all starting with losing the die roll, and the Liliana versus Selfless Spirit is really not where he needs to be.
And he knows it. He's going to have to hope that Brad's hand has a lot of blanks. He'll play Smuggler's Copter, Selfless Spirit, pass.
Brad has instant sorcery in his graveyard. If he was able to ultimate Liliana, maybe Evolving Wilds plus Ishkana, this game would be very over. Even the ultimate on itself threatens to end this game much too quickly.
Well, right, all Brad needs to do now is play defense. He gets that emblem and just plays. If he survives for 4 turns, he wins.
Yep.
He'll cast Pilgrim's Eye. That resolves, gets him another land drop. You see Brad's been actually paying a lot of attention to his land drops. Like that Traverse last turn, he just doesn't want to miss one.
This deck really wants to hit all its land drops. You know, it's pretty much guaranteed that he was able to hit the Liliana emblem here, but he wants to make sure he doesn't lose otherwise. And that means ramping up, hitting his Ishkana, hitting his Noxious Gearhulk, getting up to Emrakul, the Promised End.
Emrakul is in his hand. So you see we have Ishkana, Ruinous Path, and Emrakul all available for Brad. And Liliana's going to tick up to 8. He's going to delay the emblem a turn so that he can shoot down Selfless Spirit. And that is just Brad flexing his muscles right now.
Yeah, he decides that it's
he
very
doesn't
likely.
need the emblem.
Yeah, he should be able to survive this turn and get the emblem next turn and keep the Liliana, so why not? You know, Noah is still playing the game. That suggests that maybe he has some line to win, so Brad is just leveraging every tool that he has.
You can see it on Noah's face. He'll go ahead and make a main phase Avacyn.
The main phase Avacyn to crew Smuggler's Copter is not among the more powerful players in the format.
Avacyn will crew Smuggler's Copter. Crews with trigger on the stack, which means Copter will be indestructible.
Though Brad's plan Most likely is just a chump block with Pilgrim's Eye here.
Yeah, here's an attack. Noah will draw and discard. Brad says let that happen. Yeah, he puts the Pilgrim's Eye in front, so that adds artifact and creature to the graveyard. And then, oh, he's going to Grasp of Darkness away the Avacyn. All right. Draws again another land. So now up to 7 mana.
And Brad does have Ishkana, and now the Pilgrim's Eye is in his graveyard. That gives him Delirium.
Here's a Liliana emblem. So now the emblem's in play and the Ishkana's in play. And you see what Brad did here is he waited on the pacing of all these. If you've wondered why Ishkana didn't happen last turn, he's paying Revolutionary Rebuff respect.
Yeah, he didn't get his Ishkana countered. And also, it was pretty much a sure thing. Yeah, he had the grasp that his Liliana was going to survive to Emblem. So why not just keep it around?
Brad winning that on all fronts. It was, he got the Liliana. He took no damage, ended that game at 20. He had a Liliana emblem. He resolved an Ishkana, and he had an Emrakul in his hand. Just dominant.
Yep. As we go to sideboard here, look at Brad Nelson's side. 3 Natural State, 2 Deadweight, 2 Transgress the Mind, 2 Pick the Brain, 2 To the Slaughter, a Tireless Tracker, an Ob Nixilis Reignited, an Emrakul the Promise End, and a Kalitas Trader a Get. The card hoarder list, they are playing 4 Stasis Snare. They have Smuggler's Copter, so some number of natural states pretty good here. Transgress the Mind is solid. Get rid of the counter spells, get rid of their Avacins, get rid of their Gideons, which is a big find there. Pick the Brain for much the same reason. To the Slaughter as a way to effectively deal with Gideon is very important.
Yeah, instant speed removal is pretty important here. Do you like something like Tireless Tracker so that Brad can just play a more of attrition-based game plan?
It's definitely fine. It's not the best card here. It allows Noah to more effectively leverage Reflector Mage, but it's totally fine.
On Noah Walker's side, he's got 3 Spell Shrivels, 2 Fragmentize, 2 Blessed Alliance, 2 Declaration in Stone, 2 Jace, Unraveler of Secrets, and then some one-ofs, a Linvala the Preserver, a Quarantine Field, a Always Watching, that's the second one, and then a copy of Negate.
Always Watching does have the ability to get some of your creatures out of Liliana range, but I don't think that's really what the matchup is about. I don't think this is necessarily the matchup for that. What we've kind of seen is from this team, Spell Shrivels to counter the big spells, Declaration in Stone to help manage Ishkana, and Jace Unraveler, Secrets to kind of keep up on card advantage. Linvala the Preserver as well as something that can reasonably come back from an Ishkana.
Yeah, so I'm hoping to see some more game 2 here. Noah Walker, a very strong player in his own right, did not look strong that game. Not saying his plays were weak, but Brad just dominated them at each point.
Yeah, well, Brad just had interaction advantage at every point in the curve. He was able to leverage that Liliana both to clean up Noah's entire board with the Selva Spirit and very easily build up to the ultimate.
For the former Players Champion, the former World Champion, 30-year-old from Fargo, North Dakota, now living in Roanoke, Virginia. One of the strongest players here on the tour and has just shown his dominance. He was the 1-9-0 player yesterday. Did lose his first round today in the mirror, but looking to right that ship. We said this morning it would be a shock if Brad does not top 8 this tournament. It would be his 9th top 8 if he does. He has 1 win to his name. Not as many as you might expect, but 3 invitational top 8s, including a win. He's the only player to have been the champion of both the Star City and the Wizards of the Coast circuits.
Yeah, Brad, very consistent, very dominant player when he's at his peaks.
And we'll see if Noah can manage to take a game off of Brad Nelson. A tall order indeed. Over at StarCityGames.com, though, we want to take a second to tell you about our weekly sale. We've run one of these each week. Right now we're doing select singles at $5. These are some of the more premium singles in the format. So head on over to the store. We've been running this one all week. You're going to want to check this one out. This is our last day of running the sale because tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock we go ahead and switch to next week's sale. So get your singles today and then check in tomorrow morning and see what else we have on sale over at StarCityGames.com.
Yep. I always keep up on these sales. You know, if you like to build decks for any reason or any casual formats, be the Commander or Cube, you can really find some gems on these sales.
Ashiok Nightmare Weaver, the Gerard Fabiano invitational card. See on there.
He's actually played that card. He was on Vintage Super League for
Did he play it in Vintage
one bout.
too?
Yeah.
Okay.
He boarded it in against Storm.
I've covered a Players Championship where he had it in in his, I believe, he had in Modern and, it was in Standard and Modern and Legacy. He just had it in all his decks.
The card is not at its best in that format, but you know, you can't change nature.
It's a great card. I mean, we were talking yesterday with some, what was it? Card actually we could see it saw it played in Legacy. Can be pretty good against something like Miracles. You know, they're trying to.
They're setting up the top of their deck.
It doesn't matter if they rearrange the top 3 if you exile all of them.
Get rid of those. It's probably a reasonable card if you're able to stick it against a deck like Death and Taxes.
Yeah, they have a lot of creatures. Oh man, you can use the -X ability on it too. It's not just exiling their things.
Yeah, take their Sanctum Prelate.
Cast it.
Name like 12 because you want to be able to cast your spells.
I was like, I don't want to name any number with that. Game 2, Noah Walker with white-blue flash. He'll be on the play. We have seen the importance of white-blue getting ahead on the board in this matchup, but it's been tough for them to do it. A start on Port Town and Hissing Quagmire. Noah, second land, no play. Brad draws Grasp of Darkness. So he will make a second land drop that's Swamp if he can.
And this is really where things start for the Delirium deck with Grim Flare. If you were able to play that on turn 2, it can build up to a 4/4. Brad decided to be proactive, though we see him going with a Transgress the Mind.
All right, so we'll see what's up. Noah has a third land and only a third one. That's a Plains. He has a Gideon, a Spell Shrivel, an Archangel Avacyn, a Spell Queller, and a Stasis Snare. You know, we're talking about alliterations here in Standard. He's got a Spell Shrivel, an Archangel Avacyn, and a Stasis Snare. What's going on with this deck? This is just a mouthful.
Big fan.
Selfless Spirit also in the deck. That's where it stops.
Yeah, I really wish that Gideon was more alliterative. Gideon the Great.
Gideon was the selected card.
Makes sense.
Makes sense. It's his best one.
Right.
Noah plays a third land and passes, and Brad will make Grim Flare right into the Spell Queller. But you gotta think Brad Nelson knew about the Queller. I'm not concerned just yet.
Yep.
Swings in, Brad down to 18.
Brad just can't sit back and not doing anything with his mana. He knows that eventually he's going to be able to pull ahead of this. Looks like multiple Grasp of Darkness in his hand.
I was like, if Brad Nelson is playing a creature into Spell Queller, then as the Flash player, I have very little confidence in my creature surviving.
Yeah.
Now, what's neat is that Brad cannot double Grasp just yet. You look at his fourth land drop, it appears it's going to be basic Forest.
Yep. Though if you pass, wait till Noah Walker's turn. You can Grasp on his turn and then Grasp again on your turn. You're pulling from the same pool of mana for Noah.
And Brad makes a second Grim Flare. Not only is it the same pool of mana for Noah, but Noah only has one blue source right now. So, and this is a great line for Brad. He goes for Grim Flare, Noah end step Stasis Snares, and Brad immediately grasps down the Spell Queller. And I kind of feel that Brad got Noah on that exchange.
Yeah, Noah's just playing the spells he's able to play. His mana base is not super cooperative here. He's been stripped of his Gideon. He can't just do nothing with his mana and expect to win. If that Grim Flare just sticks around, he's getting beat up. Though the line that he went with, it ends the same way.
I mean, it's just what Noah's not able, it does not seem to be able to stick a threat. But here's his best chance at it. He's going to cast Gideon, Ally of Zendikar. This is another copy. He got his first one transgressed. He'll make a Knight Ally. We go back to Brad. Right now, instant and sorcery are the types in Brad's yard. He would love to do something like Vessel Crack Swing.
Looks like he did find a Vessel as well.
Almost certain to get him up to Delirium.
Mm-hmm. Instant sorcery in graveyard. An enchantment would be a third card type, and a lot of finds.
I think he'll put something. Yeah, he just needs to put a land in the yard if he does that. And there's Vessel and Sacrifice. So if he can get a fourth card type in the graveyard, that will play, and it's going to be creature, Emrakul. So instant sorcery, enchantment, creature in the yard. Brad finds his swamp, plays it, grasps the knight, grasps the ally, attacks down the Gideon. Board is clean yet again. Noah just can't stick a threat here.
No. And now Noah has to worry about getting this Grim Flare off the table and presenting some threats of his own.
And this is like what we talked about, how Black-Green Delirium, there's like the Grim Flare phase of the game and the rest of the game. And you get your opponent in this bind where Brad's still in the Grim Flayer phase, where Noah's just trying to answer it, and then eventually he does, and then Brad just shrugs and says, that's not what the game was about, and then just plays something like Ishkana.
Yep. Brad has made all 5 land drops here. He has Delirium. I think he does have Ishkana.
He has Ishkana too. He's just going to play that one straight into a spell shrivel he knows about. How disgusting is that?
So the thing is, Noah's representing Avacyn mana here.
Yeah.
And Brad's just testing him. Do you have it? Should I attack with this Grim Flayer here?
So just say no.
If this Ishkana resolves, I'm kind of cool with you having an Avacyn.
And that's why, that's one of the things that makes Brad so great right there. How many players, when knowing about a spell shrivel, will just tap 5 mana and play an Ishkana into it?
Yeah.
Like, no, I wouldn't do that, especially when I think Brad's last card is a Transgress. That's ridiculous.
And this is I like this out of Noah as well. He just uses Reflector Mage to bounce Ishkana. Because
okay, sure.
if he's not winning this game, if his stuff just dies, right? So part of his game plan involves flipping this Avacyn, and any number of 1/2 spiders are killed by that.
I guess he does get to spell shrivel the Ishkana on the way back down. And yeah, he swings with Avacyn, and Brad chumps away a spider.
Yep, that is also a factor as well.
The game's going quick here, but there's just a high-level plays on both sides here, and it's you don't realize it until you say, wait. The more you think about it, the more you realize this is some great games being played. Transgress from Brad gets the spell shrivel though, so Brad's gonna one up here again.
And Noah just another basic plains in his hand, still just 1 blue source.
And that means next turn, once the Ishkana is no longer reflected, Brad will get to resolve it. And White-Blue Flash has trouble beating 1 resolved Ishkana. I'm not sure it beats 2.
Noah would really like to produce a Selfless Spirit to force the flip on the Avacyn.
Yeah, so that's his best out. If Brad resolves a second Ishkana, is flipping Avacyn.
It's entirely possible that that's a card you at least trim on in this matchup, though, because of its vulnerability to Liliana, the Last Hope.
Yeah, and a lot of times I sideboard him out. Brad, some concern too. He's not swinging with Grim Flayer here, mainly because he doesn't want Noah to chump block with Reflector Mage. So Avacyn attacks again. We go back to Noah Walker's hand.
And I like the attack from the Reflector Mage as well.
Right. A Spiderling jumps in front of Avacyn. Brad takes 2 off the Mage. Noah casts Smuggler's Copter and passes the turn. Keeps that Plains in hand so that he can probably discard it next turn. So now I go back to Brad. He can cast Ishkana again. He's going to check his sideboard.
And, Brad knows he can do whatever he wants. He's seen that Plains.
Despite the fact that Brad has resolved Ishkana and could resolve another, Noah's really making a game of this. It's not yet clear to me. I felt like Brad's been ahead this whole game, but it's not. I'm not ready to call this one just yet.
Noah does have to ask for a lot from the top of his deck, to be fair.
Yeah, and unlike the Delirium, unlike Brad's deck, White-Blue Flash, Noah doesn't really have control over the top of his deck. He has to react to it.
And Noah's cards is very top end. Gideon, Avacyn, Jace Unraveler, Sequence, these are all very powerful cards. The thing is, Brad just has much higher access to his most powerful cards, his Ishkanas, his Emeralds. He can find them by top decking and traverse the Ilvenwald. He can find them by top decking and grapple with the past.
So perfect information from Brad meant that he got to resolve Ishkana again. And Noah continues to bully with that Avacyn. He uses Reflector Mage to crew Smuggler's Copter and swings the 3/3 in it, discarding away his Plains. And so now Brad, he's in this awkward spot of Noah's making suicide attacks at him, but if Brad kills any of Noah's creatures, well, Avacyn won't really like that.
And Brad has enough spiders where he can just chump block and buy some time. This is a board that's very easily cleaned up by Brad casting Emrakul.
Yeah, or even just Grasp of Darkness, Ruinous Path, right? All of those are great. Yeah, if he casts Emrakul, then he'll make Noah attack Avacyn into 4 power worth of reach.
Right.
Great.
Or 13 power worth of flying, whatever.
Sure. Yeah, it's just a bunch. Right, I guess there's a bunch of ways you can do it. And now that Noah's only blocker is at Archangel Avacyn, Brad's might attack with Grim Flayer. There's still a risk, though, right? If Noah has Spell Queller, he can flash it into play and block. But it's going to connect. 4 damage in. Brad gets that trigger, and the trigger could be so important. All he needs is a kill spell. Noah has 2 cards in hand. Brad does not know either of them. He knew about the Plains, but Noah has discarded it to Smuggler's Copter.
Yeah, so now Brad has to have some pause about whether or not his spells are resolved.
Flayer, land, land. Brad does not want any of those. They all go into the graveyard, and he will cast another Grim Flayer. Or how about Grapple with the Past?
And he does already have that Emrakul in the bin from the vessel earlier.
Yeah, if Noah has a Spell Queller, now he's going to cast it. So this is really interesting. On Brad's attack, Noah didn't flash this into Chump Block.
Well, the Flayer's already a 4/4.
Right, but just to trigger Avacyn.
Yeah, he could have done that. This game seems less about making that happen than it did a couple turns ago.
Okay, so it's changed that fast.
Yeah, Brad is so much closer to casting Emrakul, and no one knows there's already one in the graveyard, and I imagine he was specifically hoping to hit something like Grapple or something like Traverse the Ilvenwald. The Spell Queller is doing a much more valuable service there.
So he will hit the Grapple, and now Brad does not get to get his Emrakul back.
And now that the Spell Queller has a Grapple, I imagine that Noah is much less interested in flipping his Avacyn.
Grim Flayer and Traverse, the last cards for Brad. He will Traverse for another Ishkana. If you're wondering if he boarded in his second Emrakul, it looks like the answer is no. The Promised End's already in his graveyard.
Yeah, Emrakul would definitely be a stronger find than Ishkana here.
Do you think Brad, there's another tell to this. I would have thought that Brad would have traversed for Noxious Gearhulk if it was still in his deck.
Yeah, Gearhulk would be quite strong here as well.
Do you think, is this enough to conclude that Gearhulk's not in his deck? Or do you think maybe he just wants Ishkana anyway?
So the Ishkana is not particularly powerful against Avacyn that's already on the table.
Well, kind of. I mean, if he gets up to 7 spiders, he can race. Right? Just like trigger, trigger, trigger. Noah's going to attack him with Smuggler's Copter. He discards away Negate. Suppose damage already done. Traverse resolved. Brad did not. Maybe he is trying to spider out. He didn't Chump Block that turn. Instead, he just took the damage off Smuggler's Copter. We'll go back over to Brad Nelson. We'll see the line he wants here. He traversed, as I mentioned last turn, for that Ishkana. He's got a 7th land in hand, so he can play around something like Revolutionary Rebuff. He's also got some damage from these Grim players, potentially. They're both 4/4s, and he'll attack with both of them. Is Noah going to take all the damage? Looks like he goes down to 12.
And with this stream of Chump blockers, assuming he's able to get this second Ishkana to resolve, the fact that he has these 2 spiders and the Ishkana already on the battlefield, Brad's damage output, he looks to be ahead in this race currently.
We're going to have a correction here. Noah's at 8. He had gone to 16 on the last Grim Flayer hit. So you're right. The damage output looks very strong then. So the first Grim Flayer activation from Brad, mills 3. Yeah, it may be that the Ishkana race was the game plan. He's mills all 6 off the Flayer triggers, plays out the card in his hand, and passes the turn. So actually, instead of playing another Ishkana, he's just left up enough mana to deal 3 right here.
And this also pressures Noah. If he's able to do something like answer this primary Ishkana, do something like flip Avacyn and kill those spider tokens, he just has that Ishkana in the tank yet.
Archangel Avacyn, Cruise, Smuggler's Copter. Noah goes to attacks. I mean, they know Brad. He knows Brad's last card. Smuggler's Copter attacks. Draw and discard for Noah Walker. Discards Reflector Mage.
Something that Noah really wants to have is something like Negate or a second Spell Queller. If he's able to flip the Avacyn to still catch this grapple with the past.
He just has to flip the Avacyn, right? He's going to die. It's 3 damage on end step.
Well, he's going to die if Brad grapples back that Emrakul.
Oh, you mean if Avacyn flips and kills the Spell Queller, that's
right.
just as bad.
Yeah.
I mean, if Noah flips it off a Selfless Spirit, then no, you're right.
Right, because that would only be for the current turn.
He could have, another Avacyn. That's the trick, right? You let it die, and then with the trigger on, you play another Avacyn.
Sure.
End step, Brad drains Noah down to 5. So Brad went to 13 off the Smuggler's Copter hit. Activates Ishkana. So it's 13 and 5 as life totals. Brad draws. This means that both Grim Flayers are lethal right now because Noah's at a virtual 2. And maybe Brad just swings everything. Yeah, that's the play.
Yeah, he still has that backup Ishkana.
If he can get Noah in range of 2, I mean, taps 7, puts Noah to 2. It's 5 attackers, 2 blockers. Noah's going to have something. And what he has is an extension of the hand. 2-0. That is, I believe Brad is 8 for 8 in games on camera now at this tournament.
Brad has definitely established what his role is in this matchup and has been able to execute it very effectively.